A fresh debate has been sparked as to whether we have a two-tier justice system in the UK, because you've probably heard by now that the police are not going to prosecute kneecap for their comments, and I quote, "kill your MP." And you've probably also heard about the police now investigating the comments of Bob Villan and kneecap at Glastonbury, which I'll talk about in this video. Obviously, they've been contrasted with the comments of Lucy Connolly, her prosecution and subsequent imprisonment for 31 months. People have also commented on the guy that was printing stickers and was sent to prison for that, but I'll comment on that a little bit later in the video, because that's not quite as straightforward as it sounds. So there's a few overarching things to discuss here. Now, I obviously can't discuss it in too much detail because this is a live case. I can only speak generally. But first of all, this is what's happened thus far. The police are now assessing these comments made by Bob Villan when he said, and I quote, "death, death to the IDF." Now, a lot of people might just think that is just a chant and a slogan, it's freedom of speech and so on. But this sort of thing really ought to go both ways. I mean, you should have freedom of speech either way. If one thing that tends to incite violence and that is prosecuted, then another thing that may tend to incite violence, I use the term may because the police are investigating it, they will decide whether that's the case or not, then that should be treated the same way, and people will doubtless contrast and compare the two. Now, the other comments I understand that the police are investigating here, I'll come back to a couple of those tabs in a moment. The other comments I understand they're investigating here is this one here, where apparently kneecap said that they are inviting a crowd to join them to start a riot. Take a listen to this.
If anybody's available on the 20th of August at Westminster, we'll go to support Macara. We'll start a riot outside the courts.
Now, I understand the police are also investigating that as to whether that incites violence, because on the face of it, they are inviting people to go and join them to start a riot outside the courts. So the police are obviously investigating that, and I can't really say more about that until they reach their conclusion. What I can talk about, because they've reached a conclusion, is the comments where they said, "kill your MP," at the previous time they came under fire. Obviously, Glastonbury has distanced itself from these comments, saying that they do not condone hate speech, and neither, I don't support it either, for that matter, just to make that absolutely clear. Now, of course, we have a number of pieces of legislation that restrict the incitement to violence or any kind of disorder or stirring up racial hatred, religious hatred, or racially aggravated harassment and all those kind of things. We have the Public Order Act, generally prevents and prohibits threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour with intent to cause the person immediate unlawful violence. We have the Serious Crime Act, sections 44 to 46, which criminalise intentionally encouraging or assisting an offence, or including violent acts. The Racial and Religious Hatred Act of 2006 amended the Public Order Act to include Part 3A, which specifically criminalised stirring up religious hatred using threatening words or behaviour with intent. And it's these type of prosecutions that require the Attorney General's consent before commencing. And of course, we have the Terrorism Act, which restricts actions or threats designed to influence governments or intimidate the public for political, religious or ideological causes. And many of you have probably noted that the BBC also broadcasted this live during the day with many people watching. I can tell you that Rupert Lowe has written to Tim Davie, Director General of the BBC, calling on the BBC to withdraw future broadcast of Glastonbury. Rupert Lowe writes as follows: "I'm writing to express deep concern regarding the BBC's coverage of this year's Glastonbury Festival, specifically the broadcast of comments made on stage which appeared to incite violence and other offensive remarks." He says it raises serious concerns about your compliance with the BBC's legal and moral obligations. The BBC is not a private broadcaster. It is a public service institution funded by licence fee payers of all political persuasions. Viewers do not expect, nor should they be subjected to, political propaganda or dangerous rhetoric. The BBC's continued association with Glastonbury in its current form risks furthering your reputation of a decaying monopoly. I therefore urge you to take the following steps. Immediately review the editorial decisions that allowed this content to be aired, issue a public apology to licence fee payers for the failure to prevent or edit out such material, and withdraw future BBC coverage of Glastonbury. Evidently, the event is not what it once was. I do not see why licence fee payers should be forced to support such blatant politicisation and filth. I look forward to your response and seeing tangible steps to work taken to restore the BBC's reputation as a trustworthy and responsible broadcaster. But the one that is causing a bit of controversy here is where the Met Police have said they are not prosecuting kneecap for the comments and chants of "kill your MP," up Hamas, up Hezbollah, and so on. Somebody here, which I'm going to come back to, did compare this with the Sam Melia, who went to prison for printing stickers that said "it's okay to be white." That's not quite as straightforward, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But this bit about the chanting of "kill your MP," the only possible reason I can think of here is that there was no immediacy to it. And maybe they said that it doesn't really immediately invite violence. Not sure I agree with that. You understand? I'm just giving you an objective point here that might be one of the arguments against it. But coming back to this contrast here, because I do want to pick up on this, because a lot of people might pass this around and not fully understand. So some people have been saying that this one guy went to prison for printing stickers that said "it's okay to be white." But that wasn't quite as simple as that. As you can see, I commented underneath here and said, to be fair, the stickers also said things like "reject white guilt," "nationalism is nurture," "Labour loves Muslim rape gangs," and "we will be a minority in the homeland by 2066," and "diversity destined to fail, built to replace." Now, I don't condone any of those things. Now, I am an advocate of free speech, but I'm not an advocate of things that stir up racial hatred or religious hatred or whatever. But this guy, as the prosecutor said here, he printed a lot of different stickers that said a lot of different things that were clearly intended to stir up racial hatred. And he was found to have all sorts of books and memorabilia, and he was clearly an extremist. That's why he was prosecuted. He was prosecuted before a jury. And let's not forget, it was a jury that convicted him. It wasn't just the police decided that this was happened and that was it. He was prosecuted in Leeds Crown Court, where they said that he intended to stir up racial hatred by telling non-white people that they were being targeted. He set up a whole library of these that were printable, downloadable on Telegram. He encouraged people to use VPNs to stay anonymous and so on. And at Leeds Crown Court, he was found guilty of intending to stir up racial hatred through the distribution of the stickers and encouraging racially aggravated criminal damage. And he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. Nick Price of the CPS Special Crime and Counterterrorism Division said Mealy was perfectly aware that the stickers that he published on his Telegram channel were being downloaded and then stuck up in public places around the country. He also knew full well the impact these racially inflammatory stickers were having, and by attempting to remain anonymous, sought to protect himself and others from investigation. So it wasn't just one kind of sticker, it wasn't just one message, there was a whole host of these, and he was prosecuted for all of them. But obviously, people are going to draw comparisons with this, with Lucy Connolly, with the chants at Glastonbury, and so on. And so this really, I can understand at the very least why people will think that there is a two-tier justice system. But each of these cases, to be fair, are quite different. This one guy with the stickers was clearly setting up a library and disseminating them and encouraging this racially aggravated criminal damage across the country and inflammatory material, and was prosecuted for it. Lucy Connolly, I think most of us do agree that she shouldn't have posted what she did. I think even she agrees with that because she deleted it fairly quickly afterwards. But there was also an immediacy to what she posted because these riots were going on at the time. And bearing in mind that she did plead guilty, she signed a declaration and so on that she did intend to incite. But many people obviously feel that she should not be in prison because clearly she deleted it very quickly and regretted what she did. But turning to the comments of kneecap, that the police have now said that they are not investigating, so I'm talking about those comments, but they did chant, "kill your MP." Now, it is entirely reasonable to suggest that some people may have taken that as a direct incitement of violence against their MP. Now, albeit these chants were at a concert in a concert setting, you may think that there was no immediacy about it, but just reminding ourselves of exactly what they said here. They said, quote, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory, kill your local MP." And at the time, a government spokesperson said, "We unequivocally condemn threatening remarks towards any individual. Political intimidation and abuse must have no place in our society. We recognise the chilling effect that harassment and intimidation of elected representatives can have on our democracy." Now, whether there was any immediacy to those comments at all, to me, I think is irrelevant. It was in my view, stirring up intimidation towards MPs. And if you want my personal opinion to these things, subscribe to my Off the Record channel, I'll link below, and I'll tell you all about that there. But in the meantime, I would say leave me your thoughts in comments, but I would say restrict your comments from those that are under current investigation by the police. I don't want you risking contempt of court. So only those matters that have been closed off, or matters generally not specifically related to the live case, you understand. But please do subscribe to the channel, and I thank you for watching.